Welcome everyone to our session, Adjust, Discover, Persevere, Career Success Strategies for the Business Industry. I'm Ali Rodriguez, and I work at Topple as our Executive Director overseeing our employer engagement initiatives. And my co-host is?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jordan Kraft. I am the internship coordinator for the Topple Career Center, and I'll be co-presenting today. And with this session, we'd love to make it as interactive as possible. So if you guys would like to, feel free to show your video. That way you can raise your hand, things like that, if you have any questions. But we'll get started with the agenda on the next slide.
Jordan and I are here today to help you navigate this time. And so we realize there are challenges when we look at working and schooling from home. So again, we want to serve as a resource today, give you lots of info that you could take and use that moving forward. So if you're able to advance to the next screen, today we're going to cover a few topics, and like Jordan said, we want it to be interactive, so feel free. We will have a natural stopping point about 20 minutes in, but we want you to ask questions, so feel free. Like Jordan said, you could raise your hand, like literally raise your hand. You could use the chat room, and Aurora will be sharing some of those questions that you send, and we'll be monitoring that as well. But what are we going to talk about today? Resume and interview tips. We're going to talk about Cane-to-Cane and LinkedIn, two critical online tools. We're going to delve a little bit into Handshake, and you probably know about Handshake, but there are a lot of features there that you may not know about that we want to go into a little bit more depth for you today. We're going to talk about staying motivated, and then finally, resources that are tailored to your needs. Keep in mind that we are open virtually for drop-ins, so just as we were at the physical Topple Career Center, we have that capability online where you could do virtual drop-in appointments for advising questions, internship questions, resume, anything career related. We're here to help you. So you can go ahead and advance to the next slide. So when you're thinking of your resume, there are several things that stand out. And what we know it's important to remember is when you're submitting the resume, it could be to a recruiter, you could be submitting it for a scholarship. But when someone looks at the resume, we want to make sure it's consistent in terms of font, and we want to make sure the design is easy on the eyes. Okay, so you have a couple different options, and we have some guides on our website, but make sure it's not too much white space and there's not too much text, and there's that fine line there. When we talk about keywords, this is another thing that's often overlooked. A lot of recruiters, employers, companies in general use something called ATS, which is applicant tracking systems. So you may think you submit your resume and it's going into the hands of someone and someone is looking at it, and that's not always the case. Sometimes it goes through these ATS systems and looks for specific keywords. So think about when you're applying and you're reading the job or internship description, what are the keywords? How can you incorporate that into your resume to make it an impactful document? We're going to talk about bullet statements as well. When you get to that point of your experience section, a bullet statement should include what you did, skills used, and any result. Now, the best bullet statement has all three. And I think for some, they think about results. What are results? They're not always quantifiable by numbers per se, but results can include many different things. And that's why it helps to have the one-on-one session with our advisors to help you make those bullet statements really stand out and make an impact for the person who's reading it. When you think about experience section, depending if you're a freshman, senior, there may be different components of your experience section. Maybe you have internships there. Maybe you have a part-time position that you've had while working at UM. But again, this is an important section where you can share some of the experiences that you've had. So if you're applying for that internship, maybe it's your first internship, so you haven't had an internship yet. What are some of the important things that you can put there? Again, because this is your marketing document. This is the way to make yourself stand out. Keep in mind too, if you're a freshman, it's okay to have some high school things there, but as you progress into sophomore year, we recommend removing those high school jobs and things of that nature to, again, focus more on the UM experience. You can go ahead and move to the next slide. I'm going to switch it over to Jordan now to talk to you about Cane-to-Cane and LinkedIn.
All right. So something that we always talk about is the importance of networking and networking, networking and networking. And a lot of times traditionally that is meeting with people at information sessions and career fairs. But in this time, it's very important to think about your virtual network. And a lot of people don't find jobs just by you search for a job posting, you apply to it, you get a job. Typically, people find out about jobs and opportunities because of the people that they have in their network. And it might not be you meet someone today, you network with them tomorrow, they get you a job on Wednesday. That's typically not how it works, but a strong network in total can lead to a ton of different unique opportunities throughout your career and over time. So two great options for virtual networking are Cane to Cane and LinkedIn. So Cane to Cane is a community coordinated by the Topple Career Center, and it's a platform that connects students to alumni. And this can be for different opportunities such as exploring different careers, preparing for an upcoming workplace environment, or just establishing those network connections as we spoke of. So all of the alumni that opt into Cane to Cane, they do that because they know the value and they want to provide their knowledge and advice to soon to be graduates. And with Cane to Cane, you can search by industry or major to see if there's someone that you can match up with that is in a field that you might have interest in. But you can also search by things that you have in common, such as being a veteran or an international student. That way you can kind of see what it's like for someone who understands more of the personal side of you to go through that path and see if it's something you might be interested in. And then LinkedIn is a lot more common, something I'm sure a lot of you have hopefully already created. If not, definitely work on getting your LinkedIn profile created and up and running. But LinkedIn is a way to search for not only just alumni, but just connections beyond the university. Some examples, any of your high school friends, teachers, your neighbors, your relatives, past coworkers, or people that you know through your family. Those are all great people to add to your network because, like I said before, you never really know what benefit could come out of it. And speaking of that benefit, it's really important not to just make connecting or networking a means to an end. You don't want to just connect with someone and say, hey, I would like a job with your company. That's never really going to work for you. But what you should do is use these networking tools to ask for guidance and suggestions on how you can better yourself or put yourself in a position to work towards that path or to enter that industry in the future. Or simply ask if those people that you know anyone that they could connect you with so you can continue to build that network while also building that knowledge and furthering your understanding of the path or the industry that you're interested in. You can check out the next slide. So we're going to talk a little bit about some ways that you can continue to hone your skills while not leaving your home, basically. So there are tons of opportunities that you can take advantage of to develop and showcase those skills to gain employment or even to make some money. They may not be what you initially expected because a lot of things have changed and we're dealing with a lot of unexpected things, but a lot of these will be great remote opportunities for you. So the first one being remote jobs. So a lot of people don't think too much about remote jobs in their job search, but when you're job searching on Handshake or any other platform, you can plug the keyword remote or virtual in and it'll pull up different jobs that are still fitting your other filters, but that you can do while you're in comfort of your own home or not necessarily on site. And there are even certain job boards that are dedicated to just remote work. One that comes to mind is Flex Jobs. And those are basically the same job boards, but they only post those remote positions. Second bullet here shows micro internships. Micro internships are very new. They're kind of on the up and up, but it's something that's a great way to gain experience and really, most of the time, very hands-on experience for a short-term professional assignment. Some of these examples are content creation, some industry research, data cleansing, social media, these kind of things, they typically require anywhere from 5 to 40 hours of work. And they can go from a couple days to a few weeks, and most of them are done remotely. And one of the platforms in which you can access these micro internships is Parker Dewey. And you can access that from our website at highercane.com. And Parker Dewey has tons of different opportunities that are all remote, and they give you real hands-on experience that you can then translate to your resume to show some of that experience that you have. Moving on to freelancing and virtual volunteering. So these two options, they really focus on skills that you already have and what you can do with them and how you can offer those skills to other people. Some websites to keep in mind are freelancer.com, Fiverr, and Upwork. There are obviously many others. These websites give you a place to offer your skills to the world. And the really important part is it gives you the opportunity to set your own fees. And you can also build a website and market your talents that way, or even blast it out on social media if that's something you would rather do. And this, while you can set your own fees, that's always a good way to get some entrepreneurial skills. But also you can consider offering your services for free to simply build experience to kind of beef up your resume, if that's what you need to do. It's not necessarily something you need to do either way. It's kind of up to you whether you feel you need the experience more, or if you'd rather have the entrepreneurial experience in that sense. Either way, both are really good opportunities. And lastly, we have online skill development. So we all have a little extra time on our hands now, and you can use that time to gain some skills that you may have had some interest in, but not really had the time to take care of, or you hadn't really thought about it, but now you're thinking maybe you want to find something. And we'll talk a little bit later about some resources that you can use to build those skill development, but some that come straight to mind. YouTube is always great for just finding something you're interested in and getting a little more information on it piece by piece, or LinkedIn Learning, which I will talk about later on. Those are great ways to learn a new skill. But importantly, it's important not to lose sight of the larger goal. And that's just to find a career path that aligns with your skills, values, and passions. So not only should you try to make sure that every job you take during this time brings you steps closer to that career goal, it's also important when you're doing things like micro internships or skill development. You want to develop skills that you feel you would enjoy using throughout your career, or that will help you provide better service throughout your career. This way, you're always making sure that you're taking steps towards your ultimate goal and not really losing sight of what it is you're trying to get to. And I'll pass it over to Allie with the next slide.
So Jordan talks about some great points. And when you think about finding some opportunities, we're going to share a good amount of resources with you today. Handshake is one of those. And, you both have Handshake accounts, because, we know you logged in to get the Zoom info. So Adam and Sienna, and again, feel free to put this in the chat, or if you want to talk, but.
And Michael, we have a new person named Michael.
Okay, hi Michael. So we're talking about Handshake. So when you think about your level of profile completion, which I'm going to show you my fake account in a little bit, and I say, don't be intimidated. My account is 85% completion rate, which is pretty good. But I have, worked for a while, and this is my, my fake Handshake that we're going to share with you. But
okay,
think about what is important in terms of that profile. So if you wanted to make your profile public, which you don't have to, but you could, that will allow employers to search for you and then reach out to you. We know many students who tell us, I got my job on Handshake. I got my internship through Handshake because an employer reached out. So when you think about your work experience section, and again, depending on what class year you'll have more and more to add as you go along. But if you're doing the work experience, put the job title in there, put the organization, the employer, the time period, the location. Add in your organization and extracurricular activities, because that, again, can enhance your overall profile. They know that you're getting involved while you're in school and doing some things outside of the classroom. Put skills, like we talked about, we're going to talk a lot about skills today. Put some courses in there, maybe class projects. If you'd like to add a professional profile picture, you can do that as well. And Aurora can go ahead to the next slide. But I think that professional headshot, we normally will do that at Topple right now. You know, we're in a little bit of a holding pattern for that. But I know some people will have, you know, put on it's kind of like the Zooming, you know, you can wear what you want on the top, a nice professional jacket, and have someone take a picture of you. And it's going to be that headshot and maybe you have a LinkedIn account, you could use that one as well. So what else does Handshake have? So Handshake has a reviews feature. And like I said, I'll show you this briefly in just a moment. You can look at what other folks are saying about organizations, and it's career exploration essentially, but this allows you to make decisions with more information. So it will be specific advice to companies of interest and or jobs or internships of interest to you. But a lot of times when you read reviews and think, you may have heard of Glassdoor, which is another website, think about getting insight into company culture, what mentorship looks like at that organization, and learning. So some of that can be, you know, harder to gauge, and reviews allow you to do that. So we'll go ahead to the next slide. This slide will tell you when you submit a review, the different options for reviews. So just like when you do your Handshake profile, you can make it public. When you submit a review, you can make it fully visible, which of course Handshake recommends in the interest of transparency. So this will have your full name, photo, school year, and your major. If you wanted to make it semi-anonymous and not have everything out there, it will say University of Miami, what your year is and your major. And the unpublished, which is the one they don't recommend, either you do that, mark it as private, and the only one who has access to see it would be us at the Career Center, the administrators at Topple. And that could be because you chose to do it that way or because that company is not represented in Handshake. So next slide, we'll talk about Q&As. So this Q&A, like peer messaging, which I'll talk about in a moment, is across all schools. So again, a lot of people think, oh, I'm just gonna go look for a job or internship on Handshake. Well, you can do that, but there are so many other features that you could take advantage of if and when you have the time. And like Jordan was saying, we all may have a little bit more downtime on our hands now because we're not able to go out as much, right? So when you think about Q&A, you know, I have a Q&A and I want to know about a career fair. I want to know about employer views. I want to know about my industry, and I want to know about my major. They have all of those options. When you look at Q&A, you can opt into what they call targeted email digest. And some of you may say, no, I don't want any more emails. I don't want to do it. Totally optional. You don't have to do that. But let's say you wanted Handshake to compile the information for you of, again, one of those 4 areas that you were interested in. It would do that and send a digest based on, you know, the indicators there. At most 6 emails over the course of 4 months. And then finally, peer messaging. And like I said, we're just hitting on the highlights here, so you can do the next slide. So with regards to peer messaging, this allows you to ask anyone at the U or people outside of our institution about what it's like to work at a particular company. Let's say you have a grad program that you're interested in. You can ask that question as well. Resume advice. So again, we always tell you, talk to staff at Topple, get resume advice, but maybe you have an interest in, someone who did an internship at XYZ company, which is your dream company, and you reach out to them and ask for a little bit of advice. Same goes for interviews. And then you can also, do that for reviews or the Q&A feature. So let's say you saw something that person had posted and you want a little bit more detail, you can do that as well. So next slide. So when you think about what is on Handshake, and we know this, Jordan and I especially, because we approve postings that come through the system, and these are tens of thousands of postings every year. And so we know there's different opportunities, different geographic regions, internship, full-time, part-time if it's related to career. You can look and you can filter when searching. So you can also save your favorites. That could be a job that's your favorite. You could follow a company or organization and get notifications. Jordan and I do that as well. As administrators, you can also track your activity. So if you've applied for a job, you can see that on the system. All right, so now we're gonna look at Handshake. So like I said, you may have created your account. So when you log in, you obviously have different parts of your profile that you can fill out, but this is just the initial screen that you get when you first come into the system. So again, you can see across the top, You've got it here. And then if you were to scroll down a little bit, you can see recommendations that Handshake makes based on, I'm not an expert on this, but I know the word algorithm. So what they do is they create this based on your profile and how you filled it out. So what I like to do is just to take a look here at my profile. And so like I mentioned, right now, my profile is visible, as you can see. I have done a journey, which is, again, this is my own personal journey. Some of this is true, some of this is not. The May 2020 graduation date, as you probably guessed, is not true since I've been working at Topple for about 20 years. But you can see here, and again, this is just a sampling, but I did my experience. I made myself vice president of Beta Alpha Psi, a member of Gandhi Day. You know, I'm able to discover more students here, projects. And again, your interests are only visible to employers. So depending on what your interests are, that's probably the 15% of my profile that's a little bit lacking. If I were to continue to go down for my picture, you can see my resume is there and my resume is approved, yay. You can have unlimited number of resumes, cover letters, transcripts, and transcripts will typically be unofficial or another document. What's other? Typically a writing sample, something that an employer may want to see, okay? You can also see, you know, in the interest of time, you know, you could put career interests. We talked about reviews. You can update your settings in privacy at any time if you wanted to change your settings, and that could be anything from, like I mentioned before, profile public or not, to other settings. So you can see here, it's pulled up all of these positions based on what it thinks I may like. Now, I can also go to favorites, and I have a few saved there. But let's say I just wanted to do, because that's my major. So let's say I wanted to look now to see what was happening in finance. And let's say I wanted to do New York. Okay, so these are just two filters, but I didn't put in the name of an organization. You know, I didn't put in, I can add internship, because again, we know right now we're seeing different things happening with internships. A lot are going virtual, but you can see here, tells me when the application's closed. Whoa, they've got this one going for a long time. And then I match all the requirements, okay? The one thing I didn't mention at the beginning was that for requirements, sometimes it's a major, sometimes it's GPA. You know, we obviously encourage folks to be open as possible, but let's say they do have a GPA requirement. That's something that is brought in from registrar, as is your major and or school or college, okay? Different events, and again, there's tabs within the tabs. So you can see our session right here, but let's say you were interested in Bank of America and their diversity and inclusion forums. You could view the event, you can register through the system. If you wanted to look at upcoming fairs, and you see here our Fall 2020 Graduate Expo, and that's, you know, not till September 30th, so that one was just put in recently, but you'll be able to check and see, again, if we have career fairs scheduled, which employers are coming. Okay, and then, you know, very quickly, I mentioned to you about the, you know, exploring Handshake and taking a look around. You can see explore question and answers there. You can look to explore students. And let's say you're in the exploration phase of students and you really wanted to contact Jessica Hill at Marietta College. She's graduating soon. You can send her a message there through the system. Okay. Jordan, did I miss anything? I mean, I know there's a lot more in the system, but I think I covered most of what we were going to talk about.
Yeah, I think that was a good overview. Obviously, there's more that you can delve into real specifically, but I think that was a good overview.
So any questions? I know, Rachel, you may be monitoring the chat too.
Yes, so we have a question in the chat. And the question reads, why is your profile only 85% complete? If it's 100% complete, does that enhance the possibility that an employer will look at it?
Great question, Ms. Garcia. So what I have found is as you continue to complete the profile, that makes you more marketable. So it does increase the possibility, again, if your profile is public, that an employer may find you. And I think I had determined that mine was, you know, had said career journey, but I actually did do the journey. And so I think there was, and I've already forgotten what I said that I thought it was, but there was a little, one of the categories on the side So I don't know if it wanted more coursework, but there was one thing. The great thing about Handshake too, and again, mine is a fake profile, but when you go in as a student, you'll get these notifications that will say, hey, Rachel, you need to add this to make your profile more complete. So it'll give you these little nudges along the way, and then use it as motivational tools to really get you going. So that's a great question.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry if I interrupted. I was just wondering, this is something I actually wasn't sure about. I'm a senior, and I was planning on going to law school, but I'm having second thoughts about it, whether or not it's the right decision. And then, of course, COVID-19 happened.
Yep.
And I'm worried because I wasn't looking for an internship until now. Is it at all, do you think it could be too late?
For an internship, or are you looking for something?
I'm sorry, for a job.
No, absolutely not. And so, and that's where I think it's a great opportunity. Remind me your major again?
Journalism.
So you're journalism. So what you can do, depending if you're looking in journalism, you can visit our drop-in hours anytime and talk to one of our advisors about that. And you can also—
But I don't want to do journalism.
So then let's say you want to do business industry. So that's one of the areas that I advise on. And I'm going to add more advising appointments in Handshake. So let's say you wanted to do a one-on-one with us. You could do that. You could also do that drop-in as well. All of our advisors are trained. Let's say you're a comm major and you want to go into the business industry. That might be why you're here today, right? So you could talk about that one-on-one with someone, and absolutely to start the job search now. It's April. You're getting ready to graduate. I always, it's hard to know how long a job search takes because it's not uniform. And we say typically it could take, 4 to 6 months. It could take shorter, depending how flexible you are and where you would be willing to locate or relocate. And again, we realize now we're unusual times, but we've been getting, I mentioned before, I oversee our employer engagement efforts, and we are hearing from employers that hiring is still happening.
Okay.
So that's a great question. So the next slide, Aurora talks about, interview prep. So when you are thinking about, again, that internship, full-time job, and let's say you're getting ready to do the interview, it's going to be virtual, right? We're not having in-person interviews at this point in time. So take advantage of Topple's online resources to do your research about the organization and to practice. Because if you go into an interview, and like I said, I've talked to many employers over the years, and sometimes I overhear students at Career Expo talking to employers, and occasionally you'll hear someone say, hi, my name is Allery Rodriguez. What does your organization do? What does your company do? And I think what that shows is a lack of prep on the student's part. And so it's good to have a knowledge before you go in. And particularly in an interview, you have to do your research. You have to be ready to answer those difficult questions. So the Vault Guide is just one. The Vault Guide has different industry guides. And again, it could be communication, it could be entertainment, it could be finance, it could be government. A lot of different resources for you to take a look at and learn more. Big Interview, and this is also, and I didn't highlight it, I should have, in the resources section of Handshake, you'll find Vault, Big Interview. So this is, it's a platform that allows you to research a ton of interview questions, and I'm gonna use my notes for this one. You will have at your disposal a variety of tools. So challenging virtual mock interviews, a database of thousands of questions with tips on how to answer them. You can rate and share your interview answers for feedback, and a comprehensive video training curriculum that covers everything about interviews. So again, Big Interview and Vault, you could spend hours and hours in there learning and improving your skill set. And the last one is Job Scan. So it really allows you to put your resume in there and get, I think it's about, correct me if I'm wrong, Jordan, if you know, about 3 critiques. So you're able to put your resume in there. Remember that applicant tracking system I mentioned earlier? It allows you to put that in there, and it will help you as far as identifying, some of the keywords for that better ATS optimization. And I'll turn it over to Jordan.
Right. So we've talked a lot about having this extra free time, and something that we all go through is when you have a lot of free time, it's hard to stay motivated. There's a lot of factors that play into that. So one thing that I wanted to really highlight is it's important to use this time to slow down and reflect on things. We live in a very fast-paced society, and we often move really quickly without reflecting on anything. And that can lead to you deviating from the path that you thought you were on or that you want to be on. So right now is a great time to take the time to reflect on your career goals and make sure that you're moving in the right direction for where you're trying to go. Or if you're adjusting your direction, just making sure that you're comfortable with where you are and where you're going. And secondly, it's important to remember that we're all in this together, not just across or across the US, but across the world. When something like this happens, it's very easy to be afraid that it's really only affecting you and that everyone else is now going to have this upper hand on you because they're somehow not going through it. But all students everywhere are facing the same issues. Everyone is facing the same job market, especially if you're graduating this May. Everyone's going through the same fears. It's important to remember that it's not just you. And more importantly, it's important to remember this is temporary. Right now, it's very scary, I'm sure, but despite all of the short run predictions for the labor market, improvement is expected through the second half of 2020 rather, and into 2021. So it's important to realize that there is that light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not all doom and gloom. And with that doom and gloom, it's important not to give up when you face setbacks. You may face a lot of setbacks. You may have already had some things you were planning for, internships or jobs that may have changed. But it's important to use those opportunities to learn and grow. Ultimately, if you stay resilient and positive, you're going to get through it with a better mindset at the end. And your mindset can really make the difference. And that is really the big overarching statement, is that your mindset in all of this really can make this or break this. So it's important to stay positive and really take the time to relax, reflect, and keep everything collected. And then the next slide, Aurora. All right, so here are some helpful websites that'll help you in this search as you're heading through this hiring landscape. And as we've talked about, remote internships have been a thing before, but they may have just kind of been like a secondary option, but now they are very popular and more needed than ever. Multiple states are under stay-at-home orders, and millions of students have now returned home from college. So these websites would be a great way to monitor that job market. Starting with the first one, CoveIntern. This one connects employers with positions and programs to fill with students from top universities when available and when the students have that time and desire to learn. So you can definitely browse through there, similar to how you would browse through Handshake, but knowing that this is a website that's been strictly created in the past couple months to help students and employers face the changing job market. Secondly, you'll see GitHub. That has about 40 million developers that all work together to host and review code and to manage projects and to build software. And they are also tracking intern programs. So if you're kind of a tech savvy person and you're really interested in coding, that's a great place to go and find something that you can maybe get hands-on experience with coding that you might not have been expecting to get before or may not have had the opportunity to get prior. Candor is another internship search company. They have a great list of companies that are going through a hiring freeze or conversely that are not going through a hiring freeze. So if you have a few companies that you're really interested in, or maybe you sent in an initial application and you just haven't heard back and you're not sure if it's because of what's going on, that's a great place to check out and see kind of updates on what the company is going through. And similarly, is my internship canceled? I'm sure you all can tell what that website would be great for. If you haven't heard back from an internship that you've applied to, and maybe you're just not quite sure where they're at with their internship searches, you can check Is My Internship Canceled? They are regularly updating that website to help reflect what's going on at different companies, whether that company has stopped hiring entirely or if they're only dealing with applications prior to a certain date. So that kind of information will be found there. And these 4 websites will be very helpful in terms of navigating the internship job search market right now. And I will pass it over to Allie with the next slide.
And just so you know, we got your email addresses, and we'll make sure we send you this PowerPoint presentation because it does have some helpful links. So let's say you are thinking about business and you're not, a business major. What are some of the industries that you can consider? So there's accounting. And if you look at, again, some of the organizations that recruit at the U, you've got the big four accounting firms, and then you also have some smaller firms like Grant Thornton, Berkowitz. Banking and finance, we've got Bank of America, Citibank, and then some smaller regional banks like Ocean Bank. CPG, consumer packaged goods, so think organizations like Nike, L'Oreal, and this is not an exhaustive list, either in industry and or for the companies, but we're just giving you a snapshot here. Think health management, so hospitals, United Health Group. Human resources is another option, and Aurora, you can flip to the next slide. Many organizations have HR departments, and some are smaller, some are bigger, but think you may not be able to get into human resources at an organization right away. Insight Global is one that does HR, and they do hire right out of, but they do some staffing, but for the most part, like I said, HR is a great opportunity. I'd say you work for a company and then you want to try to advance and work in their HR. Although no companies, they're all the same. Everyone does it a little differently. So when you think about, marketing, Group M is actually a local organization that recruits with us, S&G Content Marketing, based out of New York, but they have an office on Miami Beach that they were just at our career fair recently. Then you've got management consulting, organizations like Maximus, Turnberry in real estate, and then tourism and hospitality, so Hertz and Royal Caribbean, to name a couple. And then if you think about manufacturing, you've got TTI, Stanley Black & Decker, and I think, again, when we look at organizations that are recruiting, what we want to do is think about, who is recruited. Obviously, you can look and see who will be attending things in the future. But Handshake actually sent out, and it was in our Topple Insider. So for those of you who don't, get that, you should all get that. But that's our weekly e-newsletter, and they had a great article that was Handshake, 500 companies who are still hiring. So, so we can definitely share that with you. But when you think about trends, right? So what are the trends in the industry? And we talked about how multifaceted business is. So when you think about some trends, we just pulled a couple here, but we've been hearing this for a while. This isn't new to COVID-19, but focusing on business analytics and technology. We know AI has a huge impact, and that's across the board. So think about that. And Jordan's going to talk about some great resources here in a little bit. We know hospitality and tourism is facing challenges. I just mentioned Royal Caribbean, and they're looking at, how to structure their internship program, hopefully for the summer. And we know competition will be fierce. So you can go on to the next slide. So when you look at trends in the industry, and we were doing a little bit of research for this presentation, I found this slide that's actually from McKinsey & Company, who also has recruited at the U in the past, but I thought it was applicable to all of us right now. So when you think about the 5 horizons, what do companies need to be thinking about? I thought, well, that's what we all should be thinking about. Resolve, resilience, return, reimagination, and reform. So I feel like this is applicable, and it was helpful to me. Okay, next slide on trends. So we will send this to you, like I said, so you can link to the LinkedIn Emerging Jobs Report. But this was for 2020, and they've done this for a while. And I picked 4, that stood out. Everything from cybersecurity, behavioral health technician, sales development rep, and customer success specialist. So like I said, this will be easy for you to download it and take a look at. But I thought those 4 were interesting in particular. Again, if you want to do a job search and you want to know what the emerging trends are and you have that flexibility in terms of what you're looking for, obviously we can help you do that, and we can help you tailor your resume if you're looking at specific positions. Okay, so trends in the industry. How do I follow these trends? Again, business is pretty big, right? But Wall Street Journal, we've got the free subscription the University of Miami does where you can log in. And then the Morning Brew, and that is a daily e-newsletter that comes. And I subscribe to that, and they brand themselves, focusing on millennials, but I'm a little past my, millennial age, never was a millennial, but it's applicable really to everyone. I find it interesting, insightful, has a little bit of, comic relief in there. So like I said, anything that you can do to enhance your knowledge of what's happening, trends, and staying current is critical right now. And I'm going to turn it back to Jordan for the next slide to talk about certifications.
All right. So we talked a lot about building your skills and developing those skills, but I'm going to give some actual places that you can go to get some certifications that maybe you can put on your resume or even just use as talk pieces in interviews to kind of build yourself up. The first one being Google Skill Shop. Google Skill Shop offers a plethora of certifications throughout the business world, from marketing to data analytics to advertising. And these classes
Google
are,
Skill Shop.
yes, Google Skill Shop.
I've never heard of that.
It's a great tool. They let you go at your own pace and take as many or as few classes as you want. And if you take, they break them up into different certifications. You can take a certain cluster and then you will be, for example, Google AdWords certified. And you're able to maximize the use of Google's algorithms to help market people towards whatever company page you're promoting. And I personally use Google Skill Shop to stay up to date with what's going on from the marketing side of business. And since Google is such a great company, it's a great keyword to have on your resume if you are Google certified in something. So that kind of ties into what Ali was saying about those keywords drawing more attention to your resume. So we can go to the next slide. All right, so this one is called Free Code Camp. Free Code Camp is, again, for that tech kind of side. It offers free courses to gain coding certifications. And since business technology is such a huge bonus right now, it's kind of what a lot of people are referring to as the future of the business. So adding something like a language, coding language to your resume and having a certification in that can really boost your marketability. And the thing with Free Code Camp is it gives you a lot of hands-on learning and understanding of what coding is, as opposed to just learning it. You're really doing it. And it's not a quick thing. I believe each certification, they have a few different language certifications. Each one is in total about 300 hours of coursework, but you can definitely just take the intros and see if maybe it's something you're interested in before fully diving in. But since it's a free option, it's very easy to do what you need or do what you feel comfortable with and kind of gain that understanding in that way. And the next slide. So now we're going to talk about LinkedIn Learning, which we've touched on a little bit before. But LinkedIn Learning is a huge platform. They have thousands of courses that cover a wide span, not just business, but all kinds of different professional development. And the beauty of LinkedIn Learning is that as students, you will have access to it for free. But even if you are graduating, you can then use a free month trial. So you can kind of extend that little length of time that you get it for free. And right now is a great time to take advantage of that because you can earn some certifications or just learn skills in general. And since it's on LinkedIn already, they very easily translate from, when you learn it to placing it on your LinkedIn profile or on your resume. And again, those keywords tend to add buzz to the profile or the resume. So that's a really good one if you're interested in maybe something that's just you've been interested in, you can pop in and just maybe take a 30-minute video class on it. Or if you really want to dive in and get a full certificate, that's also an option. All right, next slide. All right, and the last certification company we're going to talk about is Coursera. Coursera is a collaborator with over 190 universities and companies, and they offer, similar to LinkedIn, a wide range of certificates. The difference with Coursera is they do have some free courses and some paid. So it really gives you that option to tailor the process to your needs. You can really dive into paying for a certification that you're really interested in, and it'll give you a very in-depth understanding of for example, the coding languages. If you really wanted to get a full hands-on experience where you learn everything, have access to a bunch of different materials, you can pay for that. But you can also take their free courses if it's just you want to find out if you're interested in it, or if you wanted to maybe consider taking one of the paid options. You could start with a free course and kind of see what that's like and get a real feel for things prior to fully committing to buying the course. And on the next slide, we're going to talk about these are some virtual content and training tools. These won't necessarily give you certificates, but they'll help you build professional skills that you can really translate in interviews and in your work. So they're, as listed, Udemy, Khan Academy, and edX. They're all very good tools. They have anything from public speaking to intro computer science, and anything in between. So there's really something for everyone across these 3 sites. And the skills that you develop are, like I said, not so much certifications, but if you take a course in public speaking, then maybe the next time that you interview, you'll be able to present yourself a little better, and you'll be able to point out some of the things that maybe you hadn't done well before and build on them from there. Or with, the intro to certain classes, it'll give you an understanding to kind of have that conversation, or to open the door for a potential opportunity towards something that you may not have considered before. So aside from getting certifications, these are a great way, a little more relaxed way to kind of build yourself professionally, in not so much of a do this to get that kind of way. It's more of a personal growth kind of feel with these 3 websites. And I'll pass it over to Allie to talk a little more about Vaults.
So we mentioned Vault a while back, and as I mentioned, this is accessible in the resources section of Handshake, and it is content that is in Handshake because you have to create your password and all that good stuff to access it. And once you're in, you can spend a fair amount of time. So if you're a curious individual and want to learn, you can find things like what are the best companies to work for, those career guides that I mentioned before that are broken down by industry. I realize some people love blogs, and I've heard other people say, oh, I hate blogs, but I actually liked the blog that they had in there most recently, 5 tips for being a persuasive communicator while working remotely. That was good. And then Adulting 101, and they update those as well. So you're able to see, what are the different blogs that are happening. But I think what's important too is, when you go in there, you have different options, just like Handshake. And so if you like to digest things, and you want to look at something for an hour or 15 minutes or 30 minutes, and you could do that at your own pace. And Jordan mentioned that for a lot of the online learning as well. So when you think about what can I look at if you're a video person, okay, Vault has different career videos, and that I saw one on there recently for a real estate developer, investment banking analyst. So if you have some curiosity about those careers or additional ones, you can look at that as well. Career readiness, we talk about that a lot at the Topple Career Center. And so thinking about how you can become career ready and use this resource, again, to help you increase your knowledge. In terms of career exploration, you can look at some top ranked professions. You can look at a specific job and see what's the job like, what are the earnings, what's the work environment, what education do you need to do that? What are the job outlook and advancement possibilities? And then when you see that last bullet there, a day in the life, it allows you to read about a person that works as a product manager for L'Oreal or as a commercial real estate sales analyst. And those were just, agent. Those were just 2 that I picked. So you're able to read starting at 7:30, 8, or 9, kind of like broken down hour by hour for what a day in that life looks like. So I love that one. And then what are some additional resources? And like I said, I know we've given you a lot of information today, so don't fret. We will send this to you after the session via email. But if you look on Topple's website, hurricane.miami.edu, and you see what can I do with this major? That's actually very helpful. And I've found too that it's helpful when, we do our career advising, not to just look at one specific major, but look at some other options and see. You might get an idea, for something the industry that you're considering that will help you during this time. You can also see resume samples. We have, mentioned that, communication major. So your resume for journalism may look very different than if you're looking at a more traditional, business industry, marketing or whatnot. So you really should tailor your resume, as we talked about in the beginning. And then there are different identity-based resources there as well. So depending if you identify, it could be, resources for women, people of color, LGBTQ, different resources there, first gen. We have that on our website. And then what are some external sites? Indeed is a popular one. Some people, do look for jobs on LinkedIn. I think we mentioned that earlier. And then also accessible through the resources section of Handshake, we have a resource called Way Up. So that has internships, part-time jobs, entry-level positions, gigs as well, if that's an area of interest. So that's our presentation. And so Jordan is going to make some final remarks.
So we just wanted to thank you guys for sticking with our presentation, coming out, and let you know that TOPL is here for you. We miss all of our students. We miss being on campus, but our virtual services do make it easy for you to stay connected and for us to stay connected. So feel free to visit our virtual drop-in advising from Monday to Friday from 8:30 to 5 p.m. And also, if you'd like to schedule a 30-minute appointment with a career advisor, feel free to go on Handshake to schedule that. Advisors have been making more appointments so that we can see as many students as possible. And lastly, make sure to stay active on Handshake to keep an eye out for events that we have going on, such as this or other company events, and to stay connected with all that's going on.
One last chance, if anybody wanted to ask a question and or put something into the chat. Jordan and I are here. We're scheduled till 4. We can certainly go till 4 beyond that if folks had questions that you wanted to ask.
I accidentally turned on a video like 2 minutes ago, and I didn't mean to do that. Sorry.
Yeah, did anyone else see it?
Anyone hear that? I'm sorry if you did. Anyways, it was some guy like saying some weird thing. But anyways, sorry, I didn't mean to.
So you're good.
But another question I have is with this whole thing. You said that, okay, it's not too late to apply for a job, even though, of course, maybe because of are you saying because of these circumstances, they might be a little more lenient with time?
No, I think that, and that's what I was mentioning before, depending when you start your job search, the mentality is it's never too late to start your job search, right? So I think from the perspective of, because you are looking at making that shift from law school, which is what you thought your career path was, and that happens sometimes. Sometimes we think we're going to go to a graduate or professional program and we have to shift. So I think the most important thing that you can do is to think about, and again, this could be a good conversation with one-on-one with an advisor. Let's look at your resume. What are potential areas of interest? And then you can start to look at opportunities depending on those interests and any, like I said, limitations you may have geographically. We've talked to some of our employers, and for full-time opportunities, they're looking at different things now, starting these full-time positions remotely and then transitioning. Some organizations, they're taking this in stride because they work virtually anyway. So I think it's just a matter of, again, your specific situation, looking at what you've done, whether it be part-time work, internship, and then tailoring your job search to ... whatever you decide is relevant. Did that answer your question, I hope?
You get what I mean, where it's kind of scary because of this situation, and that I just decided maybe it's a good idea just to wait at least a year to go to law school, because I really just have no idea if it's what I want to do.
Yep. And we totally understand that, and we also advise on going to graduate school as well. And I have said this many times over the years, undergrad is a big investment, and sometimes graduate school is even more of an investment. So you've got to be sure, in my personal opinion, before you make that leap,
I was offered a scholarship, and I got most of it paid for.
Okay, so you can defer, right, for a year?
I don't know.
No, ask that question, and then, like I said, I think that's good to talk about one-on-one. So you can definitely schedule, a follow-up meeting with me and or one of the advisors through Handshake or do the virtual drop-in advising as well.
Do you think that it's too late? I know you said it's not too late to start looking for a job, but is it too late to do an internship? Is that like a good thing to do?
Absolutely. If you're looking to enhance a particular skill set that maybe you hadn't had a chance to do, you can look for an internship as well. And that could help add something to your resume for when you, let's say you wanted to wait a little bit to do that full-time job search, you can do that too.
Mm-hmm. Okay. But just try to do it as soon as possible, I guess you're saying, because.
Definitely recommend that. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions from our attendees via the chat and/or? Okay, well, you see we have our information right there on the screen, and Jordan, as he mentioned, is our internships coordinator, so he is our expert on the TOPL internship program, and I oversee our employer engagement efforts and also do advising for students in architecture and also for students who are searching for business industry. So again, we appreciate the time that you took out of your schedule to spend some time with us today, and hopefully you got some good information here, and we will send that email to you within the next 24 hours with our PowerPoint presentation. But thanks again, everybody.